For regeneration, remember we're trying to help our clients recover from the stress that is applied to them, not only from us as their personal trainers or strength and conditioning coaches, but from daily life. We know that we can do both active and passive strategies, where our passive strategies are going to be things like sleep and nutrition and meditation and different psychological unloads, including tempo breathing. Here, what we want to show are several of the active strategies that we could run through, what we call regeneration exercises, so that we then are able to facilitate the recovery process from the physical stress that we induce when we bring our clients into the gym and do exercise with them. These are going to be broken up into several categories. Here, remember, in our regeneration sessions, after a lifting session, after a gym session, we might do a couple minutes of dedicated or local type soft tissue work. And then we'll finish that off with a little bit of dedicated or local, focused to the movements and the muscles that we trained in that specific session, mobility work, some flexibility type stuff. Remember then, depending on the setting, we may recommend cold water immersion or a hot-cold contrast bath afterwards, depending on where that client is in their program. We could also, if we have the opportunity, program this as a standalone session. So this might be a regeneration session. In that case, remember, we would go several minutes, 20 to 30 minutes of an active rest with a low-level, yellow zone, low-intensity type ESD session, and then follow the same progression. Global, rather than local, total body soft tissue movements, followed by global, rather than local, total body activation and mobility exercises. From there, again, depending on the situation, we may send our clients out to the cold tub for a hot-cold contrast or a cold plunge. Here, what we want to show are some specific soft tissue movements that we can do with the barrel roller by Skills. These are going to be a series of foam roll exercises that we can do to start to iron out some of the kinks that we may have induced from our training session. What we're going to do first is the foam roll for your hamstrings. What I'm going to have Pat do is just sit as he is right here. We're going to work on his right leg. So that left leg is just going to be bent up here for me, Pat. I'm going to slide this right underneath your knee, and I'm going to start right on the back side of the knee. Now, reason is we know that hamstring is a multi-joint muscle, meaning that it goes over the hips and the knees. So in fact, I like to start down right on the back side of the knee. Pat's just going to lift his body up off of the floor. We're only going to do one side at a time so that we're able to maximize the amount of pressure that we get onto that hamstring. And really what I want Pat to do, and you see him doing a great job at this, is just really be deliberate. Take your time with this. You don't want to just slide forwards and backwards and just be done with it. What I want Pat to do is take a pattern where he's moving 2 inches up his leg and 1 inch back down. And then 2 inches up his leg and then 1 inch back down. And 2 inches up and 1 inch back down, etc. From his knee all the way to his hip. And that should take about 45 to even 60 seconds on each side. Now, this tempo is really important because we really want his body weight to get in and apply pressure to that foam roll. That's really going to allow us the opportunity to get in and work out some of those kinks and really iron that out. This is foam roll for hamstrings. Next, I'm going to have Pat flip over and we're going to foam roll on his groin, his adductors. What we're going to do here, the foam roll is now going to be oriented so it's parallel to her body. Pat's going to lift his leg up so his hip and his knee are going to be right about 90 degrees. Here, Pat's going to start up at his hip, and he's just going to get a little bit of pressure applied down into that foam roll right up in his groin. This is going to feel really great, especially after the first time that your clients may have gone through a really tough lower body pushing type movement. So here, again, we want to take that same pattern because we want to be about 45 to 60 seconds in each section on each movement. And so again, I really like this 2 inches down, 1 inch up tempo, where you're gradually making progress from hip to knee or from knee back to hip. This is foam roll for adductors. Next is going to be foam roll for quads. Here, we've got Pat set up so he's face down on the ground. And now we're working on his right leg, so his left knee is going to be drawn up so that that left hip is at 90 degrees and that left knee is at 90 degrees. And that's going to allow him to moderate the amount of his body weight that he puts down onto that foam roller. So here, just like before, we're going to work on that 2 inches down, 1 inch up tempo. So we're gradually and progressively working through that quad, through that muscle group. And now what we want to do, because the quad covers so much area, all of the front of your leg, we really want to get to different parts of that muscle, right? So we really want to just allow your foot to just point to the inside here. Now we're getting a little bit on the lateral aspect. Toes point right down. We're getting right up the midline there. And then toes point out to the side. And now we're also going to get a little bit on the medial aspect. By fanning your foot side to side, and by taking this 2 inches up, 1 inch down, or 2 inches down, 1 inch up tempo, now we're really going to be able to affect some change and restore some of that function to the quads after a training session. This is foam roll for quads. Next, we're going to foam roll on Pat's glutes. What we're going to do is take just a slight diagonal right here, and Pat's going to sit on that with his right hip. So now with his right hip on the barrel roller, what we're going to do is have his left leg just right here. He's going to lean back, so he's going to find the floor for support. And now his right leg is just going to come up, and he's going to do his best to cross his right foot over his left knee. So Pat, let's go ahead, get this up, and see if we can't get that up there. There you go. And now here what we're doing is just focusing on the glutes. Remember, the glutes are the biggest and strongest muscle in the body, but in terms of area, top to bottom, they don't really cover all that much space. And so here the movement can be quite small, but again, we want to focus for about 45 to 60 seconds so that we're really able to get in and target some of that tissue. This is foam roll for glutes. Finally, we're going to foam roll on Pat's lats. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to have Pat do his left side. And now, if you've done some foam roll work with your clients, you will know that there are several areas that tend to be quite tender. This is one that, in my experience, has been consistently the most tender in the majority of my clients. So this is what we're going to do. Pat's just going to lay down right there. Notice that's right up at the top part of his torso, right by where his torso and his arm meet. I'm going to have Pat lift his right foot up and put that in front of his left leg so that that foot is flat on the floor and a little bit tighter to you, Pat. This is going to allow him the opportunity to moderate how much load he has on the foam roll. From here, this bottom leg is just going to be straight for me. Perfect. You then are just going to lay back onto the foam roll. I want your hands behind your head. And now there are two levels to this movement. The first level, in someone who is only just doing this for the first time, this might be incredibly uncomfortable. And so for that person, what we may do is just go from this position with the elbow on the ground to just lifting the elbow slightly off of the floor. Hold for 2 seconds and then relax. And lift and hold for 2 seconds and relax. And for someone who's doing this for the first time, that's going to be plenty. We may do 2 or 3 different positions, rolling slightly farther down his lat as we go through, maybe 4 to 6 repetitions on each side for 2 to 3 seconds each repetition. The next level, once you've done that several times and you're accustomed to what it's going to feel like to run through this, you're going to have your hands behind your head, you're going to have your elbow off of the ground, you're going to lift your hips up off of the floor, and now you're going to start to roll right through your lats. And this is going to be really good at restoring and maintaining some of the function and mobility in your shoulders. Here, we want to focus for about 45 to 60 seconds on each side. This is foam roll for lats. Now, in the soft tissue section of our regeneration session, remember, on a dedicated regeneration day, we want to focus globally. So there are a number of movements that we can make because there's a number of body parts that we could hit. Whereas as a part of a training session, where we run through our different components, and at the end of that day, we might want to target the specific muscles of the movements that we targeted in that specific training session. This has been soft tissue for regeneration. Now, once we've done our soft tissue for our regeneration session, now we can get into some mobility. And here, this is a great opportunity to put some static stretching into your training program. Because before a training program, static stretching isn't going to be necessarily the best option. Whereas after a training session, some static stretching can be just the thing that your clients need to come back to a resting type status so that they then are able to get a jump start on the recovery process so they're even more inclined to come back for the next training session. Here are a couple quick movements that you can do with your clients and that you can also program for them to do on their own. Again, giving them a little bit of ownership to that program, supporting some autonomy, right, so that they're building towards their purpose with mastery. Here is the Z-sit with rotation. Pat's going to start down on his side, and his legs are going to be in a Z position. You can see that in the way that his legs are configured here. Now, Pat's got his right leg up what I'm going to have Pat do is reach back with his right hand and now find the ground with his left hand and just think about pushing into the ground as best he can. Notice we're looking at this posture remaining solid, meaning I'm looking to support his neutral spine here. His pelvis is going to be locked in place, so that rotation is all going to be coming from his thoracic spine, which in terms of the health of his back, his hips, and therefore his knees, but then also his shoulders, that's going to be supported really well. This is a position that we may hold for 30 to 60 seconds on each side. This is the Z-sit with rotation. Next, we're going to do a lat stretch. And this is going to be a static version of the dynamic lat stretch that we showed in our pillar preparation session. Here, the setup is going to be the same. Pat's going to start with the foam roll in front of him. He's going to start sitting back on his heels. And now keeping your palms facing up, keeping your forearms parallel, like a set of train tracks, I want you to sit back on your heels and reach as far forward as possible. Really try to keep these up. There you go. And this is a position that we may hold for 30 to 60 seconds. Again, this is a static version of the dynamic lat stretch that we showed in pillar preparation. Difference here is that now we're really looking at mobility through the shoulders. We're really targeting a stretch into the lats. And this is something that's going to be great to do after a training session, whereas the dynamic version would be great to do before a training session. This is the lat stretch, heel sit in a static stretching method. Next, we're going to do a static hamstring stretch. I'm going to have Pat lay down on his back. We're going to loop this massage roll around his right foot, and he's just going to grab that. Notice, I got that right behind the ball of his foot here. Okay, that's going to give us a great point of contact. Now, Pat, you're going to keep this left leg straight. I want you to reach for the wall through that heel. And then here, I want you to reach for the ceiling just like we would have in our pillar preparation. But now I just want you to give a little bit of help from that massage roll and hold that for about 30 seconds. Now, I want Pat actively to pull himself into this stretch position and then just give a little bit of assistance with this roll so that he's able to hold this position, but so that he's also actively pulling himself into a better position, a more complete range of motion. We're going to do this for about 30 to 60 seconds on each side. This is a static hamstring stretch. Next, I'm going to have Pat slide over onto his side for a shoulder stretch. Pat's going to flip over. We're going to stretch his left arm. His lower body is just going to be in a comfortable position. That might be about 45 degrees in his hips and knees. What I'm looking for is that this bottom arm, this is the arm that we're going to be stretching, that's going to be 90 degrees to his torso. His top shoulder is just going to lean forward even a little bit beyond a perpendicular position to the floor, because that's really going to lock this shoulder in place. Now Pat is actively going to pull his palm down towards the ground, focusing on keeping this 90-degree position in his elbow. He's going to get that as far as he can, and now he's just going to add an additional 3 to 4 pounds of force into that stretch, giving a little bit of assistance, all the while actively trying to reach down for the floor. He's only going to hold that for 2 to 3 seconds. He's going to relax, and then he's going to do it again. Focusing on keeping the top shoulder pressed forward so that bottom shoulder, the one that we're stretching, is really locked in place. We're going to do this 4 to 6 times. This is the sideline shoulder stretch. Finally, we're going to stay in this sideline position, and we're going to stretch Pat's quads. Now, this top leg, Pat's just going to reach back and grab that. Bottom leg is going to stay in that bent position. I might give him a little bit of support underneath his head so that he doesn't have to strain to keep his head in place. And now what Pat's going to do is actively kick this knee back behind him, all the while focusing on maintaining the position of his pelvis. Meaning, I want him to stay nice and active through this torso here, because that's going to focus the stretch into this quad. Now, Pat's doing a great job at actually grabbing his ankle. Some of your clients aren't going to be able to do that. An easy solution is, instead of trying to reach down and grab your foot, you bring your foot up to you. So Pat, here I'm going to give you this assistance, even though you don't need it. And you're just going to hold that and bring that up. And notice now you've got a lot more clearance. So even someone who is able to grab that ankle, this might be a good option to take a little bit of strain off of the shoulder, off of the torso. This is the quad stretch in a sideline position. So there, we've done a little bit of mobility. We've done a little bit of soft tissue. In the mobility section of our regeneration session, remember, we want to focus on restoring a resting status to the body. And that's really the goal of the entire regeneration session. How do we recover from the stress that we as personal trainers and strength and conditioning coaches have induced on our clients? Remember, we think about both active and passive strategies, and today we focus on just a couple active strategies. Some soft tissue, some mobility and movement. And then remember, you could also send them out to some cold plunge or hot-cold contrast along the parameters that we described and outlined in the presentation. These are incredibly important for a number of reasons. First of all, because that's going to allow your client to feel better on a day-to-day basis, so they're not as sore as they might have otherwise been. Secondly, these are things that you're going to be able to give to them. These are those party favors that they're going to be able to take home, and when they travel, when they're away from you for one reason or another, they're not able to come in today because something happened at home, they're still going to be able to get through 5 to 10 minutes of a dedicated regeneration type work, and they're going to be able to do basic maintenance on their body. This has been Regeneration.